If you played and loved The Forest, then you'd be glad to hear that a new installment will soon be out, and it's none other than Sons of the Forest. The new installment picks up where the original left off. However, the survival horror game's release date has been pushed back twice so far. But despite these setbacks, Son of the Forest already looks better than its predecessor. Keep watching this video for the full scoop. What you need to know: upon its initial release in April 2018, The Forest was billed as a survival horror game in which the player takes on the role of a lone survivor of a plane crash. The game has received multiple updates since its initial release, evolving into a surreal horror experience where players can either go it alone or band together to face off against mutant cannibals, recover their missing children, and solve the mysteries of the forest island on which they find themselves. According to Steam's description, players will continue the story from the forest by looking for a billionaire on the island. This character could be Timmy from the original game. New weapons and mutants await in Sons of the Forest. The opening of Sons of the Forest seems to be very similar to that of The Forest. The mercenaries or soldiers make it to safety after their helicopter crashes onto the island. This new addition demonstrates how End Night has significantly improved the survivor's arsenal. Sons of the Forest introduces guns, providing a whole variety of firearms from pistols to shotguns, in addition to the traditional melee weapons and the occasional bow or sling. It is expected that the high-tech weaponry will be useful in the fight against the numerous mutants the players will face along their journey. The mutants in Sons of the Forest appear to have received enhancements in addition to their arsenal. Conjoined mutants, a blob of amalgamated flesh with sentience, and a new mutant with a mouth that extends down its torso are all depicted in the trailer. In the previews, the cannibalistic creatures show increased intelligence that allows them to better cooperate and use more tools as a result of their previous encounter with external forces. The sequel to The Forest features reworked game mechanics. The building mechanics have been shown to be one of the most significant improvements from End Night. You could make anything you wanted appear in the forest. Putting up a log wall, for instance, would automatically result in a window being installed, saving the player the trouble of doing so. Demonstrations of the new buildings show the player taking extra steps, such as cutting out windows or sharpening a barrier fence to complete the construction of these structures. A player is shown on video physically putting materials where they need to go in order to construct a house, fire, or mount a severed head on a stake. Beyond just the crafting system, the entirety of the game mechanics have been refined in the sequel. There was no actual season mechanic, though players could venture into cooler regions of the forest. A dynamic weather system that includes seasons appears to have changed this in Sons of the Forest, adding to the list of factors players must take into account while trying to survive. Seasonal shifts can render a once reliable food source useless, necessitating the purchase of extra provisions in advance of the colder months. Also, more permanent shelters must be constructed to safeguard players from severe weather. Sons of the Forest, everything we know so far. While we wait for the game's release, here's all we know about Sons of the Forest so far. When will Sons of the Forest be out? On February 23rd, 2023, Sons of the Forest will officially be released. The highly anticipated survival game had been scheduled for release in 2022, initially in May and then in October. What platform will it be available on? Sons of the Forest will only be available on PC at this time. End Night is currently focusing on PC development, but a studio representative has said, and I quote, "We would love to come to console in the future, but are currently focused on delivering the best experience possible to PC players." Given that The Forest did see release on PC and PS4 in 2018, there is reason to believe that the creators will eventually get around to bringing the sequel to PS5 and Xbox Series X. Additionally, End Night has verified that the Sons of the Forest will cost $30. Trailer for Sons of the Forest? Developer End Night Games has released 3 trailers for Sons of the Forest, each of which showcases the game's increasing visual fidelity, system depth, and immersion. The latest trailer is a great preview of what to expect in 2023. In particular, look out for the more user-friendly construction and the scene where a group of mutants flees after the player decapitates one of them and flashes the skull back at them. Gameplay of Sons of the Forest. There have been 3 trailers for Sons of of the Forest, and they all show how far developer N-Night Games is taking the visual quality, the depth of its systems, and the improvement of immersion. Keep an eye out for the more intuitive building and a scene where a group of mutants is scared off after the player decapitates one of the group and flashes the skull back at them in the most recent trailer. The gameplay in Sons of the Forest is based on the same principles that made the first installment so popular. For your defense against the cannibal mutants and protection from the elements, you'll have to make use of everything at your disposal in this open world survival game. You can play solo or with others in cooperative multiplayer sessions. However, N-Night has not yet stated whether or not the game will allow for up to 8 players at once. The sequel to The Forest will also place a strong emphasis on the 3 skills learned in that game: crafting, cooking, and combat. Legend of the Woodsman's Sons. There were 2 possible conclusions to The Forest, but the one depicted in Sons of the Forest, in which an older Timmy fights to control his mutation and explores a mysterious island marked Site 2, has been officially adopted. The plot of Sons of the Forest begins on the isolated island where you're tasked with finding a missing billionaire, but instead find yourself ensnared in a cannibalistic nightmare. The core focus of this sequel will be survival against the horrors of the island, similar to The Forest, with a focus on visual storytelling rather than scripted encounters or lengthy cutscenes. Scenery and location in Sons of the Forest. The area available for gameplay in Sons of the Forest will be about 4 times larger than that in The Forest. A portion of the Site 2 map appears at the end of the first game, and this area is based on that, though it has been expanded as N-Night brings the map to life. It's no surprise that Sons of the Forest is another survival game set in a Pacific Northwest inspired world, but this time the seasons will change to provide more variety. This will affect not only the aesthetics of the island, but also your strategy for surviving there, as food sources will change from summer to winter, and the elements will change the behaviors of enemies and present new challenges. The robotic woodland creatures of Sons of the Forest. The new artificial intelligence system, which developer N-Night has dubbed VAIL, which governs the behavior of those who inhabit the island, is one of the more notable differences between The Forest and Sons of the Forest. Characters' routines and reactions to events can be affected by factors like hunger, thirst, and their mental state. The developer has hinted that the cannibals will find extensive ways to coordinate their attacks, and that you can even use fear as a weapon against them if you're smart with your resources. Enemies will also have their own ecosystems, with your actions helping to influence whether mutants are more likely to stick to the network of underground caves or roam the wilds above. Construction in the woods. It has been confirmed that the crafting, constructing, and preparing systems in Sons of the Forest will be expanded. The new game will have a digging mechanic and the 3D printing mechanic to help you survive or stand out from the crowd in multiplayer. Developers have confirmed that they removed the sanity system altogether because they were unable to effectively incorporate it into the game's central survival mechanic. There will still be a strong emphasis on construction in Sons of the Forest, but you can also anticipate a more realistic set of systems to help you feel more at home in the world. You can make a window in your fort by chopping out the appropriate opening, spears by sharpening wood, and campfires by snapping twigs and setting them ablaze. Although more difficult crafting systems are being added, at its core, Sons of the Forest is still a survival horror game, so careful management of your resources and environmental conditions remains crucial. So, have you seen the trailer for Sons of the Forest? Why not tell us what you think of it in the comments section? And if you enjoyed watching this video, it would be great if you give it a like and share so your buddies can check it out too. Also, getting more interesting content like this is easy. All you have to do is subscribe to our channel and tap that notification bell. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video.